The question I'm going to ask today, Dad, Papa, is...
The question that we're going to talk about is...
What is the most scared I've ever been? That one leapt off the page for me.
What was my first big trip?
How was the day of your wedding?
I'm going to talk about how I almost died twice in 2 years.
She was telling me her life story, and she didn't know it was me.
That is an absolutely true story.
And I can tell you about it.
Welcome to the Storyworth Podcast. I'm your host and Storyworth co-founder, Krista Baum. Each week on the podcast, we ask questions that help us hold on to a person's life story. We tell stories that help us get to know the people around us, the people in our communities, even better. This week, a young woman who chased her dreams of being a professional athlete all the way to the top, and how she is now pivoting into the unknown.
My name is Skyler Espinoza. I'm a very recently retired professional cyclist, and I was just recently a guide for a visually impaired cyclist as part of a tandem bike in the 2024 Paris Paralympic Games.
The next bike we will be the Paris team roster will be on Jack Lick and Skyler Espinoza. Congratulations.
So I am a track cyclist, which involves riding on a 250-meter velodrome, lots of little circles. And then with paracycling, I'm a guide, which means I ride on the front of a tandem bike of a woman who is visually impaired. And my role primarily is to keep her safe. So we're driving, we're steering, we're making sure we're not hitting anything or anyone else on the track. And then my other, job is to help power the bike. I first met Hannah because she and I were coached by the same person. And our coach thought that we might be a good fit together. And then that's how we started working together. I think that this was the first time that I had talked about a goal so publicly, which was really important to me the whole time, because I think that we keep a lot of this process behind closed doors and don't educate people about how it even works. So it was important to me to share my goal openly. Is, having like a little bit of the courage to say this is my big dream. So this past year, Hannah and I were basically told, you're not going to go, but there might be a chance. So let's keep training. And then we did end up getting selected. So it was September 30th, 2024. I woke up and I was almost immediately crying. There were these really cute little letters from kids around the US that were in our building that you could look through. And there's this one little letter that I actually ended up taking with me, which I don't think you're supposed to do. But in the top, it just said sports. And then the bottom said, thank you for doing your best, from Isaac. There's just so much pressure around the game specifically about that podium. There's a special outfit to wear on the podium. There's all these special opportunities for medalists. The medal is a very big part of that experience. And so I think we were starting to feel we have to get a medal. And somewhere there's this little kid, Isaac, who was just this is not about winning. And that was just so special for me to feel that message, I think, on that day too, to think the only thing I have to do is go out there and work hard and do my best, which I know how to do and I feel very prepared to do. And I get to do it with my family here and my husband here and in this place and honoring this journey that we've all worked really, really hard to get to. So the velodrome is, this banked 250-meter wood track, and the seats are up top above the velodrome looking down, almost kind of like a gladiator pit. And then in the bottom, in the middle of this oval track, we call it the pit. And that's where all of the teams are setting up their like stationary bike trainers, and they have snacks, and we have ice, and we have, all these things. The referees are down there, that kind of situation. So Hannah and I walked in from the bottom, and you kind of come in, and then there's like a light show happening, and there's like a lot of noise. So we were walking in, racing was just about to start, like around 9 a.m. in the morning or something when we got there. On the day, going into the velodrome and seeing all the like Paris 2024 kind of like signage, I think really like put that into context for me, that it was like the specific 2024 dream has materialized. Like 6 years ago or whatever, like this was the games. I saw my family, I got to wave to them. My husband, Nico's parents got to be there. My cousins from Kentucky came, like my family from all freaking over. So I think a cool part of the whole week was different people who have supported me getting to come together for this moment. And it's also like this weird out of body experience to be experiencing, like something you've seen on TV. Like, oh, there's somebody's like crazy family in like matching t-shirts. Like that is my family, Hannah and I are sprint cyclists. Our event lasts a very short amount of time. So the way that this particular event works is a 1 kilometer time trial. Do not ask me why the event is like this, but basically it's just like one person on the track at a time, and the fastest time wins. Track bikes are single geared bikes. So there's no shifting, and there's also no brakes. So your bike gets put into a gate that holds the back wheel, and then there's a 15-second countdown, and then there's a 5-second countdown with beeps. Once the gate releases, we're off to the races. I think once the beep sounds and the gate opens, I'm just doing what I have trained to do. Like, I'm not thinking like my family's watching or like this is it. Like, I'm just in race mode then, and that race just felt like a lot of other races. The only thing I think is like more. Can I push on the pedals any harder? Can I steer the bike even a little bit harder? There's always a little part of me that thinks like, this time I'm going to try so hard and we're going to go so fast. Like, we're going to go faster than we've ever gone, and it's going to be amazing. And that part of me is like one of the most hurtful parts in sport, because like for me, I try that hard all the time. And so there's no way that I'm going to go so much faster this day because I tried the same amount of hard yesterday. They post your time on a screen, like a really big screen. And I knew immediately looking up at the time, I was like, it's not good enough. We're definitely not going to get on the podium. And we got 6th, which I was fine with. But I think, there's like a little bit of disappointment there where I think you hope that you're going to go faster, right, in that race and have some more to give. The hurtful part is like when you feel like I went into Hulk mode and then it wasn't faster. But I think that's what we had on the day. I didn't always have retirement on my brain, but I did know that this particular games was a really big goal of mine. So I started really pushing towards 2024 in like 2018 when I started cycling. And so I knew that there was going to be a re-reckoning at that point. What made me think that I need to take a break was how hard it was for me to say no to things in sport. I think there's like a huge pressure to say like, well, if you don't want to do this, or someone else is going to take your spot. So whether that was in, I was in kind of able-bodied Olympic selection for a little bit, or the para, or anything, like I think there is an aspect of dispensability of the people in the places. Like, I am just like a number that's filling a spot. And I think that there's probably very few people, and it's even hard to imagine that they feel safe, but like very few people who feel like they are so good that they can act any way or make their own choices and there aren't any ramifications. This is tied up with sports being like people's dream career. Like, I think there's this expectation that if you are doing sports as a job or you're trying to, that it is your dream. And so therefore you will do anything to do it. I do think this particular pivot felt different. A lot of people, like family members, had supported me financially at different points. Like a lot of people, were following our journey and expecting things. And also like a huge part of this journey is my husband and his support. So I think like deciding to kind of change that goal felt like much less like it was only about me. And more so like I needed to think about my community and the other people that have been on this journey with me before I kind of made that decision. One of the things that solidified it for me was the difference between my mindset and Hannah's mindset. Hannah said to me in our day in between our races, like, oh, if I don't podium in LA, that's going to be so embarrassing. And I was like, that's not embarrassing for me at all. And I think that I just am at a place where I feel really content with what I've accomplished. And I felt no desire to like prove anything more or have any different result. Because for me, it was so hard to get there that getting there was the accomplishment. And I don't feel a need to redo that accomplishment. I had this very impactful experience early on watching my first IMAX movie that was the Ernest Shackleton kind of Unlocked from the Ice. And so I used to climb around like on my washer and dryer and imagine I was in this great adventure. And yeah, a lot of like young tests of endurance and young sports were like, whoa, like there is not a limit to like how hard you can push here. And I think like, to me, like the marriage of the mind and the body in sport has really continued to challenge me in so many different ways. In sports, people talk about this magic zone, right? Getting in the zone. And one of the sports books that I love defines that as when the challenge is exactly the right level at your physical capacity. So like the challenge is meeting you right where you're at. And there's just this feeling of like, oh, hell yeah. Like I'm kind of on top of this, but it's not like crushing me. And so I think trying to find that and then trying to find that again, a new challenge as your skills improve or as your mind tools get stronger is a cool way to start to think about like, there are always going to be a lot of challenges, but what's the right challenge for me? So after the games, it's been definitely a huge adjustment. And I think I've experienced all of the joys of the freedom and definitely some of the pitfalls. I think that on a day-to-day basis, I get to choose what I want to do, and I get to choose what I want to do with my body, which feels very liberating. I think the downfalls are that, yeah, I had a big structure that was informing my plans. It informed when I went on vacation. It informed when I ate my meals. It informed what I did with my weekends. And I don't have that anymore. And so thinking about the future definitely feels much less secure. But I think that overall, I do feel like a huge sense of peace in knowing that I definitely made the right decision for me.
That's it for this episode of the Storyworth Podcast. I'm Krista Baum. Thanks so much for listening. If you want to get started writing your own book of life stories or want to give the gift of Storyworth to a loved one, head over to Storyworth.com. And if you want one of your stories to be considered for the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us at Storyworth.com/podcast. The Storyworth Podcast was produced by the folks at Good Weight Productions. Remember, everyone has a story worth sharing. See you soon.